Hello and welcome back to my game dev series. If you're watching this video and you made it through the last one, this one is a lot better, I assure you. I figured out the stupid things that I did in the last one and I've gotten past those. So the main problem that I was having in my parsing of the new JSON was that actually the new JSON format was not getting moved to the build directory. As you recall, I'm converting those into CBOR, and then the application is reading that format in. Well, I never ran the conversion, so that happens again with the PHP script like that. And when I was looking in Visual Studio Debugger, I noticed that it was still trying to parse an element that I thought I had removed from the JSON files a long time ago, which that, of course, told me that, yeah, I didn't actually convert the files to the binary format, so I was still trying to read the old format. So that was very stupid. But that aside, I could either remove the binary format, which will take a little bit more work. I could put that in a pound-defined conditional, which again would take a little bit more work. So like if this is debug, you just use straight JSON, or if it's like a actual build for a release or something, you use the CBOR. I'm not going to do that right now. I'm just going to put that PHP call at the top of my build, and it's really fast anyway, so it's not a ton of overhead. I just won't have to worry about that anymore. So if we hit the build again, you will see that it does compile now. Well, it was anyway. And if we run that, the game does load. So you're still not seeing the trees. That's because we have a little bit more work to do here. So why don't we jump into that? Now in the map code, we have this init objects function. We can just do away with that completely, because essentially we took out all that, and the equivalent is now this, so that's pretty nice. I mean, we slimmed down a whole long function to basically one line. And of course, it's doing more behind the scenes, but since we didn't have to write it, that's very convenient. So we'll just do away with this. Then we'll have to do away with that function call as well, which was down here in load map. Now, the trees weren't getting rendered here, and this is, my commentary here is a bit of a misnomer because we don't have layer 1, layer 2, etc. Layer 1 is just background dirt, so that does not equate to layer 1 in the map file. So I'm gonna change the name of that. Let's call that dirt. So layer 1x becomes dirt x, which is kind of stupid, but it makes more sense. We get dirt e, dirty. Okay, let's put an underscore in there just to make it more sensible. Dirt y. That was 2 instances. That should be good. Now we can call this layer 1. And I'm still going to do underscores here for the sake of my sanity. Layer 1y. It's used there and down here. Now what we want to do is keep that. I had named that kind of objects or whatever texture trees. That was the textures asset. I think I'm going to rename this to objects. Yeah, objects.png, and I can fiddle with that more later if I need to. But then in my asset manager, skeleton, bone pile, dirt, trees, objects, I'll call that objects. And then we do a find here and see if we can find that anywhere else. Just there. Objects. So if we build that and run it, we should still be good. Yep. I still need to get those trees to show up, so that's going to take another pass here. Fires, actors. It's going to be kind of the same thing here, so render tree if it exists. I don't know why those are different. I mean, count would be 1 in either case. If the tree exists there, we want to do this, I believe. I mean, that doesn't really make any sense. What do we want to do in there? We know the position because that's the key. Close that. Close that. Point float is position. Get frame from health. We need to do that. So we need to set a variable outside the loop just so we can get the frame. So state trees, key, health. That'll give us the frame based on the health. That's simple enough. And then we have the position. So let's see, tile position. So tile.x equals tree frame times tile size. Now we can do our render copy of the object's texture in that position, given that tile. Those are way off. That was not quite what I was going for. So that has to do with position differences between the top of the actual map versus, so what I mean by that is I'm adding in 8 blocks of trees kind of on the outside of the map. So these are positioned based on this as the starting 0, 0 position, whereas this really should be the starting 0, 0. I need to figure out why that is actually happening. And I think the key to that is probably within these render functions in my other objects. So let's take a look at one of those. Fire render. Here's the update, here's the render. The fire, we actually apparently position is being saved. How is the position being set for that? If we go to engine, we should have a try place fire here. So player sprite position, player sprite facing. So that's not going to help us because that's based on the position of the player, which is already set correctly. What we really need is a conversion from this absolute kind of position to X. Absolute position into a relative one. But I feel like that should be happening regardless. This is kind of a hack, and I don't really want to do this, but we'll see how it goes. sorry. Oh, hello. No, something is really off here. Yeah, I should have figured something like that would happen now that I've pulled the object initialization out of the layer array. And I mean, that kind of makes sense because when those were in the layer array, I mean, it was adding these onto the same array. So those were already going to get positioned how they should have been. And now they're just not. So how do we... I think I had the right idea when I was doing that. It just kind of messed up a bunch of other stuff. I can't really use those. I need to do what is position? That's an SDL rect. So we want to have a relative position for these, which will basically be relative position y equals position y plus 8 times tile size. And I don't like that this 8 is hard coded, but I think I might have that somewhere. So add out of bounds. Count for that is window tiles divided by 2. So why don't we just kind of leverage that. Hurry down here, render. We'll just call that offset. So relative position y will be position y times or plus offset times tile size. And then relative position x will be position x plus offset times tile size. Now we will use relative position for the trees instead of the normal position. And I believe that will put them right where we want them to be. Nope, maybe not. Relative position. Position. Might help if I put a height and a width on that. Just maybe. Okay, that's closer to what we want. I don't know why it's doing that now. You know, I think what might be best is if we can modify these keys perhaps, and maybe the position. I don't want to have to do that, but I might. Like, this is one of the difficulties that comes when you are undoing work they had previously done, but you'd previously done it in kind of a hackish, kind of shoddy way. Like, this is certainly the way that I want to lay out the data, and we're close to having a somewhat functional thing. That being said, there's going to be a little bit more we have to do even beyond that, because now the code that is trying to interact with things, so interact front, is going to have to check in the trees unordered map. So map interact front is what that uses. So float position, float facing. Interact front. Trees, find. Yeah, so the position of those is going to be all kind of cocked up here. Unless we convert that position to, I guess, again, the relative position, which that's going to get funky if you're doing that on both sides. Like, you're converting to an absolute position versus a relative and converting back between both of those. That might be something we want to avoid, just for the sake of future clarity. So perhaps I can stop this process here for right now. We do have somewhat of a improved state of data, at least. Now obviously the UI is broken, and then of course if I reload just the main, oh, here I can do it this way. If I reload the main map, that's just gonna blow up because we've completely changed the tree code now. Yeah, so there you go. I think I'm going to work through a good process for how to fix this, fix the positioning overall, just so we don't have to struggle with that. Because that'll be a long-term problem that I don't want to get into hacking in a solution again when I'm just going to have to undo it later on. So let's just go for the correct solution right off the bat, whatever that ends up being, and I will get back with the solution in the next video for that. So as usual, thank you for watching if you've made it to this point, and hopefully we will see you again in the future.